Welcome to On Cloud, the podcast for cloud professionals, where we break down the state of cloud computing today and how you can unleash the power of cloud for your enterprise. Now, here's your host.
Welcome back to the On Cloud podcast. I'm Bill Briggs, Chief Technology Officer here at Deloitte, and I'm your guest host for today's show. Today, I'm joined by my good friends and colleagues, Nicola Johnson, the U.S. Chief Commercial Officer for Deloitte's Alphabet-Google relationship, and Mamoun Hirzalla, Deloitte's Alphabet Chief Technology Officer. Hey, Nicola, Mamoun, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah? All right. Tell our listeners, where are we today? Give them a sense of the scene and
We are here in the wonderful Las Vegas. And we are here at Google Next 24, which we had a wonderfully successful Google Next 23 in August in San Francisco.
So what's the energy like as you've been meeting with clients, going to sessions?
30,000 people.
Yeah.
Electrifying energy. Everybody wants to get their hand on the latest and greatest shiny objects that they've seen on day one. And every client is asking, how can I get that into my organization?
Well, so we're going to go through some of the highlights, the announcements, what we've seen, what we've heard. You know, clearly the thing for me, AI at the centerpiece, which is fantastic. As we've been pretty loud discussing over the years, AI, important breakthrough, you know, and it isn't the hero of the story. It requires a lot of other pieces to come together. And so what I love about Next is seeing the advances in infrastructure and chipset, edge, the broader tooling that you need for engineering and experience wrapped up into, of course, models, agent builders and the like. We'll dig into all of that. Nicola, what's some of the headlines and highlights so far from you?
I think one of the biggest observations overall, and as I mentioned, we were in San Francisco back in August for Next 23.
Yeah.
The difference between Next 23 and Next 24. When we were there in August, it was almost like a developers conference that we were in the middle of. It was the cusp of what was to come. And what they've actually shown here, Google Cloud has actually shown here at Next 24, is the ability to translate from a developer forum into a business-like benefits with what they can do with the generative AI capabilities. I mean, the demos were shown along the lines of just a consumer through to an enterprise and the benefits it could bring, translated well to reality for a business person sitting in the audience. And I think that's really key because business owners and leaders of organizations can now go away, and as Mamoun said, get excited as when can I get that in my organization? When can I bring the benefits of Gen AI to my organization?
Yeah, and I want that, and I want to apply it. And even from the folks I've talked to, it did seem like an interesting mix from last year. The architect and engineer community will continue and always be a part, but I've talked to more CEOs, members of boards this time, and a lot of them, it's their first time to Google Next. And I think that trend's going to continue. Yeah.
I think that somebody put the translator button on from where we were 6 to 8 months
From
ago.
tech features and actual
That's right.
impact.
That's right. I mean, obviously, this is predominantly Thomas Kurian, CEO of Google Cloud. He's an engineer.
Yeah.
Very, very smart individual. Thinks in, bits and bytes. And I think he's put a wonderful team around him to help bring this into the business environment and show the difference that Google Gemini can bring with all the bells and whistles that we're going to get into to be a differentiator for our clients, their clients, and together clients.
All right. In no particular order, headlines that jumped out.
Headlines that jumped out. I would agree with what Nicola mentioned earlier, right? So the fact that we were 8 months ago in San Francisco, I think the writing on the wall was Gen AI.
Yeah.
And I think, there were lots of hints were dropped in the previous conference that this is one of the major trends that are coming. And I think everybody knew that. Now, fast forward 8 months later, I think you see it everywhere. Gemini everywhere is really the theme of this conference. You look at all these agents. Some of them were announced earlier. Some of them were massively enhanced to accommodate additional features and capabilities. And I think a lot of people right now are still digesting what does that really mean to me from an organization perspective, from software development perspective, from productivity perspective. I don't think, honestly, that all of us realize what this thing all means right now. I think everybody is intending to come and see what is the impact and how can I go and update my methods, procedures to make sure that I leverage that.
Yeah. So I was with some of the Google engineers yesterday. I like the framing they have, kind of the three piece layer cake of Model Garden at the below. And obviously, there's a big piece of Google's advances in predictive Gemini, but also they're open to others, which is important. How do we think about the model building layer? And then, Nicola, you said the agents.
Right.
Yeah. And my new favorite word is agentic, by the way. Agentic. I'll be using that with some attribution in the weeks to come. But there were announcements at each layer.
Correct.
So should we maybe unpack them?
On the model side, they were talking about the enhancements and access to Gemini 1.5 Pro that's being available in preview mode in 180 countries through the API. This is very fascinating because typically, you wouldn't get that massive access across on day one. So this is one thing unique that they have done. The lighter models, the Gemini models are being available now to you. They can run faster for different types of purposes. So this is something also that they've added. The open source type of models that are available to you. This is a big differentiator for Google. You're not just married to Google provided models. You have Claude, you have other open source. All of these things are available to you. If you happen to want to leverage these type of capabilities, they're right there.
Just switch the API call and away you go.
Exactly.
Right? Reload the context.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think one of the headlines that I've seen just in the reporting, the million context window is a big deal with Gemini 1.5 Pro. I'm not sure we know exactly what to do with that yet, which I guess is exciting. What did you see? The middle piece, I think, is a sweet spot, is we're helping our clients put together the studio and their own ability to harness AI and Gen AI for sure, but seeing how that gets embedded in. So this idea of the investments in Model Builder, what jumps out for you on that?
I think some of the key attributes of what they're bringing together now, the ability to combine much more like the audio, video, here we are, in the public domain, the ability to leverage at the enterprise level.
Yeah.
So I personally think it's going to be a game changer. Now, I think there will be challenges though, Bill, and I think Mamoun and I have talked about this quite a bit with the rest of our alliance team, is the one area that nobody really talks about so much is the change management aspect of the human acceptance of some of this change. We're talking about unbelievable processing speed. We're talking about unbelievable capabilities that are complete multimodal in the way we as a human being operate. We're talking about processing power that's starting to think and can play back. That's really key. To me, one of the main things that I heard was this: I'll translate what they said. It remembers. Right? We're moving into a completely different area of what this technology can do.
Yeah. To me, there's a couple of big things of it. One is that the creativity of how do we just not think about what we've always done and how we've always done it to unlock new potential is a piece. So that creative and the force multiplier of humanity and thinking about how to apply. But then also the best use cases in enterprise are taking things historically have not been digitized, are based on years of tribal knowledge and institutional wisdom, typically in individual employees, like the artisan work process at a factory floor for tooling, on a hospital floor for the operating theater. And we're saying we could do better. Now we're going to amplify and empower the humans in the loop. But there's also that you have to trust the model, you have to trust the machine, and you have to actually take advantage of the advances.
Great.
Yeah.
And I think, to augment what you said, Google, everybody has some concern about the results from Gen AI. Right? Sometimes you have to go and validate yourself and all of that. And the elimination of hallucinations is one of these key problems that plagues all kind of LLMs. So Google basically released two key features that will significantly reduce hallucinations. The first one is you ground the results in enterprise data, and that's massive. Basically, now your own inventory, your own data, your own customer information, you can have access of that data through the LLM. And then now you're 100% sure that this data is accurate based on real-time potential inventory that you're getting. So one, trust level. The second thing is you can ground data with enterprise search across many facets. That combined with the enterprise data and enterprise search, I think hallucinations will be something of the past once this method gets fully incorporated and added to the process of the results of Gen AI.
Yeah, and in the public internet, in just real time, Google search is another layer of grounding as well, which is a great complement between. And I think, Nicola, you started with the difference 8 months ago with potential energy, but not a lot of real use cases. And those that were doing it was proof of concept and early pilot. This idea of how do I get from 60% accuracy, which makes for a great demo to get people excited, to 90 plus 95 plus % accuracy with grounding and reinforcement learning and tuning. That's the difference between taking something and actually embedding it in operations and transforming your business, right? And we've crossed that path.
I think we've crossed over that line. I think that one word that's been used in our conversation here a lot, though, and I'll tell you, just to take us back a step a little bit into reality.
Okay, yeah.
It is data. Every Google executive that we've had the opportunity to meet with this week as well, data keeps going. So the ability to be able to manage that data better, the ability to be able to consider holding it in one or two places rather than all over the place, and the ability to get hold of it when it is in disparate models. Again, what Google's trying to enhance here is the ability to pull and center the right data with all these different opportunities around Gen AI, which is not what we've seen in the past. And data, just basic data, is our bread and butter at Deloitte. It's one of the key aspects of what we can bring to an organization to help them get the benefits out of this future technology, really.
I was on a panel with some of the more business execs, and one of my headlines was about that need and how none of the advances have made that fundamental, the criticality of that fundamental issue of data management, data strategy is more important than ever. Sorry, we don't just go and get to skip that step. And the other piece is on the core modernization, which sometimes can feel like a really loaded concept. But as we move to the agent, so the third layer, and saying we're not doing standalone in a chat bot, we're embedding it in workflow, we're embedding it in business process, we're embedding it in customer experiences. That takes us to the sometimes third rail of you have to invest in your core systems if you expect to harness the full potential, because that's where that's where the data lives, and that's where work is done and customer experiences are had. Right.
Agreed. So, I'll give you an analogy. General practitioners, doctors, right? They know certain things. But when you want to go to get the root cause of certain things that you don't know, you go to a specialist. Right? I think LLMs definitely is going into that path. There are these LLMs that are general. These are the ones that are specialized. And then you can build these type of agents on top of these specialized ones. Now, what can make it even greater is the multidisciplinary interaction between all these specialists coming together. Because now you can harness not just one agent, you can harness all of them. And I can see some additional use cases later that you can look at manufacturing, you can look at supply chain, you can look at IoT. All of these things and logistics and scheduling of deliveries and all of these things. I can see many of the manufacturing and CPG companies looking at these type of scenarios and saying, now I can ground it in my enterprise data. I can ground it in enterprise search and Google Maps and all of these type of logistics. Now let's build something very useful together with that type of scenario.
And just to pile on there just a tiny bit. Right? Google Alphabet, not just Google Cloud, the products and the solutions that the whole organization has to offer is seldom represented the way it should be. But what you could do with the combination of like the media, think about the data from a media and digital advertising, marketing, as well as Workspace, Chrome OS, Pixel, YouTube. I can foresee with the movement they're making with Gemini and Gen AI in general, that it won't be too much longer before we may be starting to see more of an alphabet.
Integrated suite of offerings.
That's right. I mean, look what we saw this week. Google Workspace, BigQuery, Gemini, all pulled together to do exactly what Mamoun's just given the example of, right? And if you then take it up another level, it's almost stratospheric.
If the listeners could see my technologist geek propeller spinning, because I think that's the biggest potential, and advanced connectivity. We talked a little bit about edge, but advanced networking connectivity, quantum and advanced computing. So beyond just TPUs and GPUs into the next row. Like those are all pieces of the broader alphabet unlock that it hasn't been announced yet, but you can see the breadcrumbs of where we're headed. So I was going to close this with asking you each for a bit of what you're excited for, what's to come in and a bit of prediction?
I would say that what we want to do as the Alliance is truthfully bring all this excitement in-house to Deloitte as well.
Okay.
I want to see us being able to leverage what those opportunities could be at our clients, educate our partners, our directors, all our practitioners and resources so we can bring this to life at our clients. That to me is that next step for us at Deloitte and what we can take out of this Google Next 24.
Yeah. All right, Mamoun, what's a highlight to look out for?
I'll mention two things. I'll put on my delivery hat as well, and I'll say, okay, great. We need to make sure that we have the right assets, the right accelerators, and things that would lower the barrier for entry into these things. Yeah. That's one of the key areas that we need to bring more things to our clients. The second thing is, I think the multidisciplinary use cases, how all of these things will mesh together. We started discussions with clients on all of that. To get that to reality would require a ton of collaboration internally and making sure that we have the right minds from industry perspective and technology perspective to bring visions that never been thought before to bring them to our clients.
Okay. Well, it's been an exciting few days. All right, Mamoun, where can we find you on the web or on social? Any place that folks can track you down?
LinkedIn. I typically post for day one. I did one. We'll do another post later on to recap and provide some reflections on the event.
All right, Mamoun Hirzalla, Hirzalla at Deloitte. Nicola, how about you?
I'm on LinkedIn as well.
All right. Well, if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to like us, rate us, and subscribe. You can also check out our past episodes at DeloitteCloudPodcast.com, all one word. You can find me, Bill Briggs, posting on LinkedIn. Feel free to give me a follow or reach out if you have any questions. Until next time, thanks for having me all, and stay safe, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
This podcast is produced by Deloitte. The views and opinions expressed by podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Deloitte. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice or services of any kind. For additional information about Deloitte, go to deloitte.com/about.